morning, students. I told you I'd come in my banana costume for our first lesson, so here we are. Today we are doing Reducing Fractions Part 2. So, here we go. Let's have a good time. All right. We have already learned about this. So, this is somewhat of a review. So, a fraction is reduced to its lowest terms when 1 is the greatest factor that both the numerator and the denominator have in common. So here we go. The equivalent fractions that we have below here have the same amount in each, half and 4/8. We know that 4 is half of 8. Therefore, we know it's a half. All right, when we can reduce 4/8 by dividing 4 and 8 by 2. You guys are already beginning to be experts on this. So we've got this. All right, if we reduce 4/8 by dividing both terms by 2, we find that 4/8 is equal to 2/4, which is also equal to 6/12, 9/18, and so on. So, we know 2/4 can be divided by 2, and we get a half. All right, we can avoid the need to reduce more than once if we divide by the greatest common factor. Remember how we talked about we need to find the greatest factor to go into these problems so that we don't have to continue to reduce. We can just do it once. All right, so as they are demonstrating here, when we have 4/8, we divide by 4 and 4 to get a half. All right. Here are our examples. So, there are 4 blue marbles and 8 white marbles in the bag. If one marble is taken from the bag without looking, what is the probability that the marble is selected is white? Well, since 8 of these marbles are white, the probability would be 8/12. Since 8 and 12 are both divisible by 2, we may reduce 8/12 by dividing both terms by 2. So here we go. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 12 divided by 2 is 6. But guess what? We still have to reduce. So that is why we look to find the greatest common factor. What goes into both 8 and both 12? All right, we know that 4 goes into both 8 and 12, correct? So 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. The probability that the marble that's selected is 2/3. Our next example. The value of a dime is 40% of the value of a quarter. Write 40% as a reduced fraction. So, remember, percents are in the hundredths. So we have 40%, 40 over 100. Since the numerator and the denominator both end in 0, we know that they are both divisible by 10. So here we go, 4/10. Now, we look at that number and we all know that it can be reduced because we all know that 2 goes into it. 4 is an even number, 10 is an even number. So we divide both of them by 2 and we get 2/5. The greatest common factor of 40 and 100 is 20. So when we look at this, we can look at that and see that 2 would go into both of those, put the zeros on, divide both of them by 20, and we get 2/5. That's just a much faster way to get there. Oh, we are already at our lesson practice. Who would like to come up and do A? Just kidding. I wish you could. All right. A. Reduce each fraction. I do want you to do the lesson practice, even though you do have your written practice to do also, just as we do every day. All right, but I'm going to help you through it in this portion. All right, 4/12. I look at that right away and I go, my greatest common factor. Well, I always look at my numerator and I think, what's the greatest number that can go into that? 4, correct? So I divide both of these by 4, and I have 1/3. So my reduced fraction is 1/3. Then I go to 6/18. Wow, guess what? 6 goes into 6, and 6 goes into 18. That is 1. 6 goes into 18 3 times, 1/3. All right, my next problem, 16 24ths. Well, I look at that, I know that 16 does not go into 24. So, I do know that these are both divisible by 2 because they end in even numbers. But I also look and I think, are they divisible by 3? No. Are they both divisible by 4? Yes. But I think I can go bigger than that. They both divisible by 8. Yes, because if they're divisible by 2 and they're divisible by 4, then they should be divisible by 8, correct? All right, 8 goes into 16 2 times. 8 goes into 24 3 times. And there you go. All right. I'm going to skip down and do F with you. F, 60 hundredths. So that would be 60% if I were looking at percents, correct? So I take, and first of all, I like to look at this without the zeros. Okay, what goes into 6 and what goes into 10? 2. 2 goes into both of these. So I'm going to divide these by 20 because I'm going to put my zeros back on. All right, that's a terrible 2. 60 divided by 20 is 3. 10 divided by 20 is 5. And voila, there you go, 3/5. Now, you don't, of course, need to look at it taking the zeros off, but you know I like to do that to help you with the mental math portion of this. So, I'm just going to rewrite it for you so that you can see better what I'm talking about. All right, let's go on down. We get to do some addition, multiplication, and subtraction. All right, so 7 16ths plus 1/16. Well, guess what? I look at this problem and I know, because I have a common denominator, that I can just add the numerators. 7 plus 1 is 8. This stays the same. I break it into the same number of parts. That doesn't change in addition or subtraction. So I look at that. I know that 8 is half of 16. So this is 1/2. Now, of course, I could take my 8/16 and I could divide that by 2. Actually, I would divide it by 8. Eight goes into 8 once, 8 goes into 16 twice. And there you go. All right. I love multiplying fractions. It's so fun. So 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 5 is 20. I can reduce both of those. They both end in an even number. All right, so I look at 2. 2 goes into both of these. 3 only goes into the 12. But are they both divisible by 4? Because 20 isn't divisible by 3. All right, yes, they are both divisible by 4. That is my greatest common factor that goes into them. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And voila, 3/5 is my answer. Next problem. I have a common denominator. So, here we go, every day at this time. It does that. All right, so 19 subtract 1 is 18. The 24 stays the same. All right, what goes into 18 and 24? 6 goes into 18 and 24. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 6 goes into 24 4 times. 3/4 is my answer. All right, now I get to write each percent as a reduced fraction. Right here I go 25 over 100. Well, I know some of you already are thinking, I know exactly what that is. We look. 25 is divisible by 25, and 100 is divisible by 25. So I am going to 25 divided by 25 is 1. 25 divided by 1, or 100 divided by 25 is 4. There we go. 60 over 100. I feel like we've just done that recently. I'm going to divide both of these by 20. And that will equal 3/5. 20 goes into 63. 20 goes into 100. 5. 3/5 is our answer. All right, 90 over, I'm going to erase that. That looks terrible. 90 over 100. Guess what? 2 goes into only the 100. Doesn't go into 90 evenly. 3 goes into the 90, but not the 100. 4 only goes into the 100. I'm going to jump to 10. These both can be divided by 10. And when I look at 90 over 100, I know that if I took these zeros off, that it would just be 9/10 as a reduced fraction. All right, it's time. Grab your paper. Let's get started on our homework. Please, if you have any questions, save them, and we will be meeting later to talk about them. All right, good luck. Miss you.